Rams, Panthers, and Packers-Bears. Sunday, the defending champion Eagles host the 49ers along with the Bills, Jaguars, and Chargers versus Patriots. And Monday night on ESPN and ABC, the fifth-seeded Texans visit Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. We will cover yesterday's action in full over the next 2 hours, but we start here with some breaking news as multiple coaches have been fired today. Adam Schefter with us all show. What do we need to know, Adam? Let's start in Cleveland.
Laura, this is always a busy day, no different this year. The Cleveland Browns have moved on from Kevin Stefanski after 6 seasons. The two-time Coach of the Year now is unemployed. He is expected to be a top candidate in this cycle. We'll see where he gets interviews. But again, most people believe that he's got a real chance to wind up with a head coaching job. Meanwhile, the Browns' head coaching search will be led by their general manager, Andrew Berry. Similar story in Las Vegas. The Raiders move on from Pete Carroll. One and done. Their search will be led by their general manager, John Spytek, and Tom Brady. Pete Carroll lasted 1 season. The Raiders had the worst record in football. They have the #1 pick. They fired their special teams coordinator. They fired their offense coordinator. And now they fired their head coach. In Arizona, they also made a big move, firing Jonathan Gannon. This surprised some people because I think there was a feeling that Gannon ultimately would be safe, but losing 9 straight games, defense not playing well when you're supposed to be a defensive-minded coach, didn't work out in the end, and the Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell made the decision to fire him. Their head coaching search will be led by their GM, Monty Ossenfort. And last night, the Falcons started the spate of firings, firing both Raheem Morris, the head coach, and the general manager, Terry Fontenot. Raheem Morris, his team had won 4 straight games. They finished strong. The players there voiced their support for Raheem Morris. Bijan Robinson spoke up. Drake London spoke up. And it wasn't enough for a Falcons team that's overhauling its organization. And here are a number of players or coaches who already are not going anywhere. The Colts said Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, their GM, will be back. The Bengals said Zach Taylor, their head coach, and their personnel man, Duke Tobin, will be back. And the Giants said Joe Shane, their general manager, will lead their head coaching search. He also is back. So some people keep their jobs, and many today lose their jobs, Laura.
All right, again, Adam with us all show long. A lot more news to get to. Thanks to you, Adam, for the latest. Let's get back to the Browns here. Shedeur Sanders was asked about Stefanski being fired earlier today. Take a listen.
Yeah, well, this year has been the first year with a different head coach than Pop, so that was the adjustment off rip, and it was cool, it was straight. Like building different relationships, like in different circumstances, situations, which is always good to have those life goals and have those life lessons around, just to have them on building blocks so then you prepared in any situations.
All right, we welcome you here. We've got Dan and RC in studio. Mina is here. Marcus is joining us in just a little bit. RC, what do you make of the decision to move on from?
Well, I think the first thing from listening to Shedeur Sanders, there's clearly no connection between Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders. There wasn't a relationship there that needed to be carried over to the next year. If Shedeur Sanders is going to be your head coach, Kevin Stefanski can coach football. Kevin Stefanski understands offense, and in my opinion, he understands leadership. What he was able to do with Baker Mayfield in 2020, what we saw once Deshaun Watson was injured and Joe Flacco was acquired in 2023. It's going to be about putting him in the right position. This is an organizational thing to me for the Cleveland Browns. If Andrew Berry is still going to be in charge and he's going to pick the next head coach for Jimmy Haslam's team, he has to pick the right head coach. And then you have to make the decision, is Shedeur Sanders the quarterback of the future? Because the next head coach that you bring in will have to be on board with that decision as well. This isn't just about replacing Kevin Stefanski. It's about a restructuring of this entire organization, because for decades, what we've seen out of this organization has been underachievement at its finest.
And don't forget, this is a football team that, one, has the 3rd most cap space in the NFL moving forward for next season, and 2 first-round picks. Yeah. And that's putting on top of a defense with Myles Garrett and Mason Graham, Carson Schwarzenegger, who's a defensive rookie of the year candidate, Denzel Ward, young pieces on the offensive side, and Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin. And so there are some young, talented pieces on this football team with at least a plethora of cash to spend and obviously those 2 first-round picks. Who do you trust to be the steward of that?
Yeah.
If Andrew Berry is going to be the person that is selecting the talent, who do you trust to be the steward of not only that, but that first-round pick is more than likely going to be a quarterback, or at least one of them? What coach do we think is going to be best suited to finally give him your best chance to hit on that quarterback outside of like Baker Mayfield? Yeah.
I am honestly a little puzzled that they trust Andrew Berry to be the steward of all the choices and the cap space and everything that Dan just described. Obviously, this team has struggled over the last few years because of the quarterback position. The worst trade in NFL history happened under his watch, and I know people will put it on the owners or whatever. He was the GM, okay? And it's not just the quarterback. Watching this offense this year, the offensive line is a mess, and there's more burdensome contracts. That's something that they're going to have to allocate a lot towards fixing. The receiver group is one of the worst in the NFL. They hit on some good draft picks this year. I'll give them that. Love Fannin Jr., Schlesinger, of course. But to me, I look at this team, and it's just perplexing. It's like the offense and the defense were on 2 different timelines.
100%.
That's a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Yeah.
They should have been
100%.
paired with a quarterback and offense that could compete, and they haven't been for a couple of years. So honestly, I don't really get this. Moving on from Stefanski, yes, the offense struggled. There's a litany of reasons for that. But splitting them and keeping the GM, to be quite candid, it doesn't really make sense to me.
No, I absolutely agree. And we're seeing this with multiple teams in this coaching cycle, that they're deciding to get rid of their head coach and stick with general managers who built those teams and hired those head coaches. When you think about Cleveland moving forward, it's what are you going to do different? How are you going to have an infrastructure that allows young players to flourish on the offensive side of the ball? Speaking, when you talked about that defense, Dan, and Mina as well, you're absolutely right. For the last 2 years under Jim Schwartz, this is a Super Bowl caliber defense, not just a good defensive football team. And it's been malpractice on the offensive side of the ball, which is the reason Kevin Stefanski has to go. But when you talk about the pieces assembled, that's based on what Andrew Berry decided to draft and also acquire.
Yeah, I think the decision to keep Andrew Berry is probably the most public signifying of that wasn't Deshaun Watson's, or he wasn't the person selecting Deshaun Watson. That was the ownership's move, because there's no way you would allow him to stay in place if that was him. And just continuing to spin this forward when it comes to the quarterback position, I do think it's one of those places where the quarterback will have to be a physically just big, talented, like larger person.
Really?
The Ben Roethlisbergers, the Joe Burrows, you're not going to find a Lamar.
Okay, I don't think that person is in this draft.
That was going to be my question, Dan.
You said, picking,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but you said one of those picks would have to be a quarterback in the first round. Dante Moore is slightly built at about 205, 206 pounds. Fernando Mendoza isn't this bulldozing quarterback with this fire hose for an arm.
Yeah.
Would it be a situation where they draft the best players available and try to move forward with Shedeur?
Yeah, I think Shedeur has done enough to at least be in that conversation. I don't know who's the head coach, what's his comfort level with that, but I do think Shedeur has proven to be all right, that could be an option. I do think they're going to have to address quarterback at some point.
It's just interesting to think about them waiting another year to try to get that quarterback that they really feel like they can move into the future for. But if that person doesn't exist for them in this draft, we'll have to see. Again, we are on this news throughout the show, all of the coaching firings and some other things coming your way later on. We're with you for 2 hours on a Monday.